This is part 3 of a 4-part video series. In part 2, I showed how to customize the front end for this Bitcoin Cash merchant store. In this video, part 3, I'm going to cover how to customize the back end, the REST API that the front end talks to in order to upload that form data that the customer fills out, generate a Bitcoin Cash address, which the customer then pays, and then compiles that form data and the payment information into an end-to-end encrypted message and sends it to the merchant. I'm also going to introduce the PSF BCH wallet, which is the command line wallet for the Permissionless Software Foundation. All this software in these videos is maintained by the Permissionless Software Foundation. And this is our go-to app for checking and reading end-to-end encrypted messages. So I'll introduce that as well. So here's the outline of what I'm going to cover in this video. I'm going to walk through the README for the back end. Then we're going to clone the repo and install dependencies. I'll walk through the config file for customizing that back end for your own store. And then I'll introduce the PSF BCH wallet and show how to read and check for encrypted messages. So from the previous video here, in this terminal on the left, I've got the front end running, and that's running right here in my browser. And I've got the console log pulled up so I can see the different events that are coming. I'm using Firefox here, but you can use Chrome or any browser you want. They have the same features. And so the back end, if you go back to the front end README, there's a link here to the back end, which is Merchant Demo Server, and I've got it here in this tab. So again, it's on the Permissionless Software Foundation GitHub group in a repository called Merchant Demo Server. So let me walk through the README here. There's a quick overview just stating what it is. And again, there's a link here. If you're not a developer and you want to hire one to customize this for your store, you can find resources there. But here's the theory of operation of this backend. It's a node.js JavaScript app running the Koa framework, which is very similar to Express, if you're familiar with that, which sets up a REST API web server, and that's what the front end talks to. This has the database that stores the information. There's two primary REST API endpoints. The first is post order, and that creates new orders. So this is what the front end calls when the user fills out that form of information with their name and email and shipping address and the quantity they want to buy. That information is passed on to this endpoint, which creates an order database entry. And then later on, when periodically the app will check these orders to see if they've been funded. And when an order has been detected as funded, it will delete that order and use that information to create a new database entry called paid orders. And then it will end-to-end encrypt that information and send it on to the merchant's Bitcoin Cash address where they can retrieve it. And then there's the second REST API endpoint, and this is called by the front end to display that animation. And it just checks to see if the back end has detected and processed the payment, which includes sending the message to the merchant. And so that's called periodically by the front end, and it just returns either true or false. And so the front end can either display a notification or not. And so with that basic understanding, let's go ahead and clone this repository and customize it for our own store. So here are the instructions for that. You're going to copy this URL, which is right here, and I'm in this directory called Merchant Demo, and there's only the front end. I'm going to clone that back end. So now there's two directories. I'm going to enter the server directory, and I'm going to install the dependencies with npm install. So now that the dependencies have been installed, we can start the app with npm start. and this will launch it. It'll by default run on port 5020. And I think that's really the only... Oh, and then there was no wallet file because we just cloned it, so it created a wallet file for us. Let me close this. And you can see it as this wallet.json file. So this is a Bitcoin Cash wallet. This is all the information that you need to retrieve and control this. It's a single address wallet. That's the address. This is... let's see. This is the private key if you want to sweep the funds out of this address. This is the 12-word mnemonic. You can import this into wallet.fullstack.cache to graphically access this wallet. And so that's the information you need to know about that. So now that we've cloned and installed dependencies, let me walk you through the config file. Going back to the text editor, here is the repository we just cloned, and the config file is in it's in config, in this config directory, and then there's an env for environment, and then there's common. So these are environment variables that are common to all different environments. So there's test, production, and development. These are common to all those environments. Scroll down to the bottom, and there's these two main properties you need to change. The product price is the price in US dollars, so that's set at 5 cents. I'm going to leave that alone. You would change this to, for your product, whatever price you want to charge. And then this is the Bitcoin Cash address for the merchant. This is the address where the end-to-end encrypted message will be sent. So you'll want to change that to your own address. And I'm going to show how to do that. So that is a good segue into PSF BCH wallet. So if you are totally unfamiliar with PSF BCH wallet, it's another code repository here on GitHub under the permissionless software group, and it's a CLI or CLI or command line interface. And the way to work with this, we'll just do a brand new installation. I have some videos here on how to install and use it, how to configure it, and how to create tokens and NFTs with it. So I'm not going to cover that information in depth in this video. You should watch those if you are brand new to PSF BCH wallet. I'm just going to quickly show how to install it for the purposes of receiving and reading end-to-end encrypted messages. So let's see. I'm going to go back into this temp directory where the merchant demo is, and I'm going to clone the PSF BCH wallet, go into that and install the npm dependencies. So you can see, hopefully you're detecting a pattern here. This is the typical workflow for JavaScript programs, cloning and installing npm dependencies. And with that done, everything is executed with this bin run command. And so if you do help, it'll display the list of commands. There's quite a few, and I'm not going to cover very many of them in this video. But wallet list will list the wallets. This is brand new installation, so it doesn't have any. So let's create one. And so to get detailed help, you can do a command. So here's wallet create. And so you can do the command and then -- help to get detailed commands or instructions for each command. So I'm going to do -n for name, and I'm going to do merchant demo, and I'm going to give it a description. Receives E2EE messages. So now if I run that list command, it'll show we have this one wallet. And if I want to create, say, a backup of the wallet, in case something happens to this computer, it's in the .wallets, and then, wallets, and then the name of the wallet with the .json. It's stored as a JSON file. So again, here's the wallet file. Here is the private key. Here is the 12-word mnemonic. You can import this into wallet.fullstack.cache to graphically interact with this wallet. So now that we have a wallet, there's one little caveat in order to receive end-to-end encrypted messages. The public key for this address needs to be on the blockchain, and currently it is not because it's brand new. And in order to do that, we need to make a transaction with this wallet. And in order to do that, it first has to have some Bitcoin Cash in order to create a transaction. So this is just a one-time setup, what I'm covering right now. This is just a one-time setup. You only have to do it once, and then you never have to do it again. I'm just going to take this address, and I'm going to send it like 2 cents in Bitcoin Cash. Right now that's about 18,000 sats. Just give that a second to generate the transaction and broadcast it. Okay. And so now if I go wallet balances, this will call out to the blockchain and check the balance of this address, and it will have one now. And all I need to do in order to put the public key onto the blockchain is I need to make at least one transaction. So there's this send BCH command. Let's check out the help for that. I'm going to send some Bitcoin Cash back to myself. Or it doesn't matter where you send it. You can send it back to yourself. I could send it back to the web wallet. As long as it makes a transaction, then the public key will be on the blockchain, and then that is needed because that public key is used to encrypt the messages. So I am going to use this merchant demo wallet, and I'm just going to send it. I might as well just send it back to this web wallet here. And I'm going to send a very tiny amount, let's say 1,000 Satoshis. I think that's 10,000, 1,000 Satoshis. It can be any amount as long as the transaction is valid and goes through. If you don't do this step, you'll get an error when the backend tries to send an end-to-end encrypted message. It'll say, can't find the public key on the blockchain. So if you see an error like that, you'll know that you need to go back and do this step. There's something wrong. The address that you provided, it does not have a public key on the blockchain to be looked up. So we've now done that. The public key is now on the blockchain, and now this address can receive end-to-end encrypted messages. So let's see where we are at the outline. So we've created a wallet and we've put the pub key on the blockchain. So now that we have everything set up, let's go ahead and start this demo, or start this backend. So it's up, it's running. It's on the default port of 5020, which is what the actually let's just check that in the .env development. There we are. So if you need to change the port, you need to change that, but we're all good to go out of the box. So I'll start this back up. I'm going to close that tab. And here's the tab that we had open. I'm going to just refresh everything, refresh the screen. We'll keep an eye over here on the command prompt. So let's go ahead and just do the demo as is, but this is all running locally on our own computer. So I'm going to go test at test.com, name is test, shipping address test, quantity 1. This is going to use that default price of 5 cents. OFSM. Okay, so now let's clear the console and the network, and we'll see that when we hit this button, it's calling localhost 5020/order. It's a post call. It's calling that endpoint. And if we look over here, we can see this is the terminal for the backend REST API server. We can see that here's the form information that came through. It generated a Bitcoin Cash or a key pair, both an address and a key, and then it passed that information. It passed the address back to the front end, which allowed it to display this QR code and the Bitcoin Cash amount for the equivalent fiat price. And now you can see these calls, which is this animation. Every few seconds it's calling, I think every 10 seconds, it's calling to check if the back end has processed the payment. So let's go ahead and send 5 cents of Bitcoin Cash to this address, like I showed in the first video. So there's the transaction, and we'll continue to watch this animation. And so here's a little message. There's 2 orders in the database, and it's going through and it's checking each order for a balance. So I think we missed it on that last one. So I think it's every 2 minutes or every 5 minutes we'll get this message that's checking the orders in the database. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll start it back up once that gets detected, so we don't just have to sit here waiting. Okay, so here it's coming back around. There it's detecting this order is paid. It's taking this information, putting it into a message. Here's the encrypted version of it. And now what it's doing is it's putting that encrypted data, putting it into a JSON file, and uploading it to the pay-to-write database. If you're not familiar with the pay-to-write database, that's another product generated by the Permissionless Software Foundation. It's a censorship-resistant database that runs on IPFS, and you write to it by paying Bitcoin Cash. Or actually, specifically, you write to it using permissionless software foundation tokens, but that's all abstracted and hidden away. As far as you need to be concerned with, you need a little Bitcoin Cash to pay for it. That fee is around a penny, and that is being paid for with the funds from the customer. So that's why we didn't have to say load this app with any Bitcoin Cash, because the funds to send the encrypted message is being paid for by the customer. And this is actually a painfully slow process. It will be sped up in the near future. We've got a solution for this, but right now it's kind of a slow process. But again, in terms of ordering a product, this, if it takes 5 minutes, that's not a big deal. This is all automated and it's all happening in the background. What matters is the end result, that you get a message as a merchant saying that you've been paid and you need to ship a product. So here it goes. It looks like it successfully wrote to the database. And then next what it'll do is send a message on the blockchain, a signal, because it's expensive to put data on the blockchain. Okay, here we go. Now the payment has been processed by the back end and signaled as processed. And so the front end just called that endpoint it's been calling every few seconds. So now the front end knows that the payment has been processed, and it is now displaying a message to the user or the customer. So the customer's workflow is complete here. And now if we go back to the PSF BCH wallet, again, we can do this wallet list to list our wallets. And there's this message check command. And that will check for new encrypted messages sent to the Bitcoin Cash address for this wallet. So it only has one argument, which is the name of the wallet. And so that encrypted message was encrypted with the public key that we just put on the blockchain. That's why we needed to do that step. And again, that was a one-time step. But this message check command, if you're a merchant and you're not using the notifier, which I'm going to show in the next video, you'll want to run this command like once a day just to check for messages. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake, and I'm glad I did, because this is going to be a really common mistake. I did not update the config file with the address for this wallet. It's still using the default address. So if I do wallet adders to get the address for this wallet, I needed to go into this config file that I showed before, and I needed to change this to the address for our wallet for this new merchant. I'm sure that's going to be a common mistake for most people. So what I'm going to do is restart the backend server, and I'm going to rerun this, but I'm not going to record it so you don't have to sit through it, just so I can show this. So I will place another order for another widget, do the exact same thing that you just saw, and then when we pick this back up, we'll be able to, it'll have sent the message to the correct address, and now we can read it. Okay, so once I put in the right address, I was able to go through the same process, then run this message check command, and then lo and behold, I do actually have an encrypted message. So when I run that check command, so now I can run this message read command to download and decrypt the encrypted message. So that has two arguments, the name of the wallet and the transaction ID, which is displayed here by message check. So it's retrieving the encrypted message from the pay-to-write database and then decrypting it with the private key for this Bitcoin Cash address. So here is all the information that the merchant needs. If this is the Mongo database entry for the order in the database, here is the form information. So the email address, the name, the shipping address, and the quantity. This is the private key. As I said before, like this can be used by the merchant to sweep the funds into their own wallet, so they then have the money and they can safely ship the product. The rest of this information is just sort of metadata that's not really important to the merchant. So there, I got the funds back in my wallet. So this concludes the demo of how to configure, install the backend. And in the fourth and final part video, I will show how to set up this, where is it? E2E email notifier, which will automatically detect these end-to-end encrypted messages on the blockchain and send you an email notification to let you know that, hey, you have a new order that needs to be processed.